Fine. Okay, great. Well, with all of the hiccups, we're still recording this webinar, I believe, and Mike's already told you about going to the question and answer panel, the chat to ask questions during the webinar. Thank you for your patience. My name is Trish Edwards. I'm a Medtronic technical writer, as Mike was saying, and I've been a Flare user since 2013. Version 9 is when I started, when I was at another company, and as a matter of fact, it was Mike Hamilton that talked me into not using RoboHelp and to using Madcap Flare instead, and I've not looked back. I'm a technical lead for Madcap Flare at Medtronic Americas in the Service and Repair Organization. I have a lot of experience writing maintenance and repair instructions for especially large systems such as surgical imaging and navigation systems and UV oxidation reactors and another life long ago. I have experience writing software help, and I have experience writing for environmental education programs. I also, in a past life, have had the experience of turning a large paper book into a portable website. Today, we're going to cover what it means to write for field service, who the audience is, what the content needs to cover, the environment where service takes place, and in large part due to the fondness of notified bodies for paper, we have until very recently produced content for PDF and print only, PDF mostly. Then, as times began to change and we were hearing more and more about the size of the manuals being a problem, people were trying to use them on their devices, we finally were able to make the case for moving to a screen, a design specifically for screens. And we'll talk a little bit about how we did that ourselves with Madcap Flare, and also what's coming next. So when we create content for field service, we are focused on the safety of patients and technicians first and foremost. The service techs must be able to safely complete service and testing and guarantee that the device is available and will function as intended when the patient is present. We want to minimize downtime for the customer so that our systems are up and ready to go when the patient has need of them. Medical device manufacturing is a highly regulated industry. It's regulated around the world, and what we write must be compliant to all appropriate regulatory guidance. We're writing most often for hardware. Technicians are using tools to manipulate physical components of a system. The service activities that we write for are performed at the customer site. In hospitals and surgical centers, our group typically writes content for, in the field service folks service, large capital equipment such as the O-arm imaging system, stealth station navigation system, and increasingly surgical robotics. We aim to make the repairs in one visit. So our Medtronic employees, our field service personnel are largely Medtronic employees. They're people who have been trained on the systems they service. They're trained in electrical, mechanical, and radiation safety. We do service some customers that are not Medtronic employees, or we write content for them. But mostly we are writing for an internal audience of technical experts. The service content is most often built as a comprehensive service manual with all of the information the technician needs to work on that system. We also provide technical bulletins, which are a little bit more like an individual procedure that has an urgent update that can't wait for the next version of the manual, and we're able to get that out to the field right away. We also write the training manuals to train the service technicians. At Medtronic, our service documentation is very granular. Our reuse is very granular. Our primary molecule of information is the procedure. Procedures are a collection of information that includes what tools are needed, information about the component and how to get to the component to replace it, how to put everything back together, and how to test to make sure that the system works afterwards. The procedure is not the smallest unit of information, though. If the procedure is a molecule, then the topics that make up the procedure are the atoms. And we use repeated tasks as topics that can be used in multiple procedures. This does a couple of things for us. This allows us to be really consistent. So if we write how to take off the cover of something, those instructions are the same in every procedure where they're used. It also makes it really quick to put together procedures, and it gives us a lot of accuracy when we're planning for the project. So we assemble these topics into procedures, and this image shows an example of how one topic may be used in multiple procedures. We do that a lot. And after we assemble the procedures, we add them to chapters. We link the procedures into the chapter so that if we add content to a procedure, add a topic or remove a topic, it's automatically going to be updated in the chapter. And then, of course, the chapters are assembled into books. All right, so design for paper. We have historically used PDFs to communicate with the information to the field. All of our service documents until recently were PDF. In our case, the service manuals are not part of the product, as in instructions for use. If any of you are involved in medical device or a regulated industry, instructions for use or indications for use, or the user manual that tells you how to use the document are generally printed and made available to the customer. We only have to distribute in PDF, so we don't have to print and stock the manuals, and that actually gives us a little bit of an advantage when it comes time to think about doing things differently. So with PDF as the standard, what's wrong with that? Nothing. They're optimized for paper and print. So if you're largely in paper and print, PDFs are great. They maintain the design that they're printed with, and they are portable. It's in the name. They're accessed on, you can access them on your laptop or on a tablet, even on a phone, although that's not optimal. And PDFs don't care if you've got a Mac or a Windows machine. The issue is that even though it's on a device, PDF still acts like paper. You're taking in the information a page at a time, and as we all know, search is less than optimal as well on PDFs. In our case, the PDFs were getting enormous, especially a couple of our manuals, and the size was problematic. Okay, PDF is an information dump. I like to write fiction, and one of the things you have to watch out for as a new writer is something called the info dump, and that's where you just write paragraphs and paragraphs about the background of the character as opposed to revealing it more artfully through their actions and dialogue. A 3,000-page manual as a PDF is an info dump. It delivers all of the information at once. And while you can search, you have to page through the results in document order, next or previous. The result is that we had frustrated and unhappy users. So how do our service manuals get used in the field? I was at a training once upon a time that had some field service engineers in it, and one of them had a 3-ring binder with just full of sticky notes. And that's what he did. He took the 3-ring binder to the customer site. Other people were starting to use our PDFs on laptops and tablets. It was a little more portable, and you can navigate somewhat through the electronic document. Consistent formatting works against PDFs on the phone, though, and we did have a set of users who were trying to read these PDFs on the phone. And what happens with a PDF on a phone is that, yeah, you can zoom in and you can see the content larger, but the sentence wrapping is exactly the same. So some of your content falls off the screen. We had a group of users that were starting to just not bother with the service manual and call tech support and ask for a PDF, just that one PDF that they needed. And the problem with that is that just that one procedure is an uncontrolled document, and those of you who work in regulated environments probably are gasping right now. It was surprising to find out. But what it meant for us is that we needed to do better. We needed to be able to anticipate the user's need, understand the context, and offer the content rather than dump it. So what does that mean, offer the content? How about making it possible and easy to get to the right content at the right time? We needed to make the content more easily searchable and also more easily findable. So you may recognize some of these keywords as being from the Information 4.0 Consortium website. And while they're looking to anticipate the future of content consumption, it's a great place to go to get ideas for how to improve what you're doing right now, and that's what we did. Along came the next big idea. The next big idea is a contest that Medtronic has had a couple of times since I've been there. The idea is that employees are challenged to turn their pain points into process improvement strategies, or to fill a market gap by suggesting a new product or product line. The winners get project funding, and I thought this would be a great time to suggest that we design the content specifically for screens. Do it without a web or app developer, because we had Madcap Flare, and that's one of their superpowers. Then we needed to be able to deliver it to the field and control the version out in the field. I didn't win this contest because HTML is not really new, and but there was an interest. There was interest in our department and in our at the time they were called business units. They wanted to know what I was thinking about doing this, and so we did a proof of concept project. And we moved into the world of designing for HTML and designing for screens, which was, as you can imagine, a bit of a paradigm shift. It's like going on the hero's journey a little bit for those of you who write fiction. And Madcap Flare was our magical ally. So you may be wondering, why didn't we just build a website? Access and coverage were big problems out in the field where these field service engineers were working. Hospital Wi-Fi and hospital internet may not be available due to privacy considerations of the hospital patient privacy laws, and it's different in every country. It's even different in states of the United States. And cell coverage is another problem. You don't necessarily have good cell coverage in the bowels of a large concrete building. The technician needed to have guaranteed access to the content, regardless of the connection situation. So that meant that they had to have it on their device. Fortunately, HTML output can be loaded onto a portable medium. And that's something I had done before with a large book that was a giveaway. It was perfect bound, it was expensive to print, and we ultimately turned the content into HTML and put it on a CD as the giveaway to the customers. You can use memory sticks, memory cards. You can also compress HTML into a zip file. At Medtronic, we chose this option for proprietary security reasons. We needed to be able to control who got access to this. We don't give our service manuals out to customers. It's a service that we sell that service. Plus, it can be dangerous if a user isn't trained for them to try and do their own repairs. So our mission was to take our print content and conjure up an HTML output for Flare, from Flare, and compress the HTML output into a zip file that we could then give access to the field, and they could use device browsers to interact with that content. So that was the plan. Some of the things we had to consider was what it was going to do to our team. We knew we were going to have to update all of the projects, so there had to be a system for touching all of the content to prepare it for two different outputs, because we were still going to do PDF, it's a document of record, and we were just adding this other way to view the content. We had to decide what HTML features we wanted to implement, and we wanted to gather input and requirements from the actual people in the field who would be using this content. We wanted to get their buy-in and maybe get them a little bit excited about this new way of doing things. But none of it was going to go anywhere unless regulatory and quality decided that it was okay for us to do what we wanted to do and it wasn't going to violate anything. So we worked with them. We worked with these stakeholders, and what they said is that's fine, but you have to have one book structure, and in Flare that means one TOC that goes to PDF and HTML. You can't have two different TOCs. You also have to prove that the content is the same. And this is where we began to really dig into the world of responsive HTML and what it could do for us. We were starting in a good place with print. We'd been in Flare for a long time, relatively long time, and the print design was set and the content was there and just ready to go. And we turned to Flare templates. For those of us who might be a little bit design challenged, but also if you've got time constraints and budget constraints. Medtronic, Madcap Software has free templates. If you've ever started a new project, you know you can use one of their templates to start it. When HTML5, responsive HTML came along, they made some responsive templates available on the website, and they're free to use. They include the instructions for customizing the template. And you can find them at madcapsoftware.com under the resources tab, and just go to project templates. And that's what we did. We decided that we needed to pick a template that would best show off our content. And we settled on one called Balboa. I think in the early days it was called something like Responsive Parallax or something. There were a number of reasons why we liked it, but the big buttons on the homepage were a huge part of that because I had plans for those, and I'll talk more about that later. If there is an easy way to create responsive HTML, using Flare templates is probably it. We had to touch the template pages. We had to consider what was going on with our CSS and our style sheet and how that was going to have to change. And we had to look at the skins. These templates have a number of responsive design features. We'll start with the template pages. This is the template page, and when I first saw one, it was a little bit startling. It was a little bit like having writer's block, all that white space, and I didn't know what to do with it at first. But this is the equivalent of a page layout. What page layouts are to print, these template pages are to HTML. And you can do a lot with it, and what you end up with is a container that holds your content in a predictable way on your output. And now I'm going to, let's see here. I wanted to show what that looks like here. So this is what these guys look like in real life. And not only that, but I'm looking at one as for a tablet layout. So I can change the width of my proxies. The way that Madcap implements this responsive design is with a 12-column grid. So if you look at this proxy, you'll see that it is 6 columns wide, and this one is 6 columns wide as well. So that's 12 columns. For the body proxy, it's a full 12 columns. So in a tablet view, it's going to span across the page. But you can do that for each of your media types, web or default medium as it shows up in the style sheet. Looks a little bit different. And the mobile, everything is just kind of stacked up together. This search tips, you may see a little eyeball with an X on it. It does not show up in the mobile phone view, the smartphone view. Okay, going back. Whoops, there we go. Well, nope. Okay. Now CSS. Cascading style sheets. There are a number of great webinars that Madcap offers for free on working directly in the style sheet. But what I love is the style sheet editor, because I don't like to write code. I'm not great at it, and I can do it, but it's a long, painful process. But with the style sheet editor, I was able to open all 4 of the media at the same time and make style changes in each one of them and have a little preview of what that was doing to my, or was going to do to my output. And then we, of course, had to touch the responsive skins. Much like the template pages, you can choose which medium you want to preview. The left image is the web medium, and you can see, oh, it's got the top navigation links showing. The image on the right is selected for tablet medium, and it shows the hamburger. And a lot of this was built in already. So all I had to do was sort of change some values along the way, which saved time and made it possible for me to be able to do that. Finally, it was time to start in with customizing the template. Our first uh-oh moment was when the print styles were, when we realized that our print styles were all set in the default medium, which matters because the default medium is actually, things cascade from there, and the default medium is for the web. Thankfully, it was very possible and somewhat easy to be able to move those print styles to the style sheet and enter styles for each one of the media that we wanted to use. We decided we were going to start pretty basic with just the default medium and the print medium. It turns out the tablet didn't look too bad, so we did that, but we decided to optimize for mobile at a later date, kind of as a future enhancement. The other thing we had to do is come up with that single TOC, we couldn't really use our basic manual TOC. It's kind of long form, as you can see. It's a nice table of contents in a printed book. But if I just took this guy and didn't do anything else and did a top nav output, I would have 15 links up at the top of the page, and that seemed excessive. So we restructured the TOC from this to something that had sections in it. And each one of these sections became our top nav links: getting started, procedures, troubleshooting, and reference information. And we worked as a team to figure out how we wanted to break that out. And finally, we applied conditions. These are this print and online conditions. It's in the, I think, default set of condition tags in Flare. Our book, our PDF, needed to have a cover and a table of contents and a back page. And we wanted that information in HTML. It just didn't necessarily have to be on the home page. So we moved it. We repurposed that content so that it could appear as a different kind of topic for the HTML output. When it came to deciding the feature set that we wanted, we filtered the results by system architecture. We worked on enhanced searches, something we called a wrong word search. The wrong word searches were to help people, if they were used to a nickname for a part, be able to find the correct part using the nickname. We wanted to develop micro content, not just for search results, but with an eye towards the future of perhaps being able to do augmented reality experiences someday in the future. Okay, back to the home buttons. What was kind of cool about this is it gave us one-click access to plan maintenance, troubleshooting, system testing, anything that's frequently used. You could also go to what's new and see in that version the things that had changed, kind of an at a glance. Here are all the things that changed in this revision. Some other perks that we discovered is that people wanted to link back to the PDF. So on the first topic of every procedure, we included a link that opens the PDF at the location of that procedure. And another thing that was really improved was reporting. There were people in the field that complained because they were finding things and telling someone, but it wasn't getting to us or always getting in the next version of the manual. So I took this call to action button that was built into the template page already, and I assigned it to send me an email that included the manual number, the revision of the manual so we could make sure that they had the correct one, and the name of the topic that had the problem. And of course, in the body of the email, they could describe what that was. And that has been kind of a neat success. We have gotten a good handful of reports from the field about things that needed to be updated. Okay, finally, we've got something that we're ready to present to the users of our content, the consumers of our content. We met with teams from around the world and demonstrated how the HTML output would work. And during the discussions, we got real-time feedback about what they liked, what they thought would be better. And we identified some other features, like that need for there to be a link to the PDF, because some people wanted that. And I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot, mostly because we've got a late start, but also because in the next Mad World conference, Ray Davis will be presenting the art and science of rapid prototyping with Madcap Flare. And he's going to go in depth on this process of working with actual users to get the feedback. And then it was time to take what we had learned and put it into action. Change the project, build the project, debug the project, find all the things that still aren't working, and then you go back to the CSS, or you go back to the master page, or you go back to something and try and make it better. And when you've got something that you're really pretty happy with, I guess I'd say, you repeat that process in multiple browsers, and you can do that as you go along. You know, you can change, build, debug in several browsers at once, but it helps you discover if you need to recommend one browser over another for your users in the field. This is where the rubber met the road. It was time to build a test project, develop a test protocol, and validate that the content was unchanged between the two outputs, and also record the results. The test project characteristics and the test that I made is that I took something small, which was the writing test that Ray gives to new writers, and I turned that into a Flare project because it wasn't proprietary, and I could give it all the features that we use in PDF and all the features that we use in HTML outputs. Of course, we use the same target settings that we were planning to use in the real life project. Another of my colleagues worked very closely with quality to hammer out the test protocol. In the end, we decided that we would record the equipment that we were doing the test on, including the operating system. We also record the browsers where we're testing the HTML output and the version of Adobe Acrobat that we're testing the PDF on. Record the date and time of test, of course, and then we build both outputs according to various test cases and scenarios that we developed. And for each one of those scenarios, we record the expected results, the results we actually got, we capture objective evidence and determine pass-fail, and then your initials and date for every line, for every test case or scenario. And we also threw in a couple of sort of daily work sort of tasks that might flag us if Flare had changed dramatically, such as changing a topic, and you get that little asterisk up in the tab when it's changed and before you save it. So if you were ever to do this and needed to record test results, what we did is we worked with quality engineering, and you'll need to work with your quality engineering and regulatory to determine what documentation artifacts are required by the quality system, your quality system. You might want to determine when to repeat the testing, if ever. We settled on major Flare updates, although sometimes I'll do it at some of the in-between updates just because it's not that hard. And then you'll need to define what you consider objective evidence. For us, we take a screenshot of the build results or test case results and save that with the test protocol that's been signed off and filled out. You may want to do something different, or you may decide that that's not really necessary for you. We're finally ready to release and deliver. The content is verified and released as a PDF. That has not changed. But after it's released, then it's safe to build that HTML output with the already released content. A lot of this is driven by regulatory. Things have to happen in a certain order so that you're not sending draft versions out in the field by accident. The HTML output, we compress it into a zip file, make it available on our intranet that is accessible by service personnel who have been trained to do the service. We notify those folks in the field that it's time to go download it, and then they extract the HTML onto their device where they can interact with their device browser. So in the beginning, I think I've said so like a million times today. In the beginning, it seemed like a very, at least mission improbable sort of task, since we didn't have a web designer and there wasn't budget to hire anyone to help us out. and we had very minimal project time allocated. None of the scheduled projects could be made to be late while we went through the prototyping and got this ready to release. But in the end, we did it. I may not be the world's greatest designer, but there it is. And so far, the feedback we've gotten is pretty positive. Of course, in the future, we're going to aim for continuous improvement. We're going to continue to gather feedback, of course, from the people who are using this and find out what they need, what they would like to see different. We have it in the pipeline to be able to push new releases to their devices when they're available so that they don't have to come and download them. I have been working on the design for smaller screens, and I've made some pretty good progress. So even though we don't encourage people to use the content on a smartphone, it should be reasonably, it's getting better for them to be able to do that, let's say that. And our dream of dreams is to maybe develop this as an app for the phones and tablets, or possibly an augmented reality experience and tie into something like that for the field service people. And that's all I have, I suppose, Mike. We go back to you.
All right, excellent. Marketing just had a couple of slides they wanted to include. By simply being a participant in this webinar, there is some special pricing. There's a competitive upgrade deal that's available. Again, there's no special codes or anything, just mention that you attended this webinar. Let's see, any other special slides, or do we go into questions now? We go into questions. Now, there was a question that came in very early that, I'll be honest, I'm kind of intrigued to see if you have the answer for, and this may not be something that you tracked, so don't mean to put you on the spot, but the question was, since a multi-thousand page PDF can tend to be rather large, as in, many, many, many megabytes, did you notice much of a size difference loading an HTML set on a mobile device compared to the multi-megabytes that would take up as a PDF?
Well, I do have the answer to that. Originally, we were hoping to keep the size down by just sending out the HTML, but when we got feedback, especially from some of the European colleagues, that they were not comfortable not having the PDF be a part of this project, we actually load a slightly smaller, currently we load a smaller size version of the PDF, which does have some impact on images, but our focus is having the images look good in the HTML. So we do include the PDF, and they can use it, but it may not be the best resolution of a PDF. And yes, it's still huge.
Understood. That was what I was expecting, to be honest, because content is content. Whether we unwrap it as PDF and just present it as HTML, it's just been my experience. There usually isn't a huge file size savings. There might be some, but it's usually pretty comparable.
I think, if I may, it was more the difficulty of navigating through a PDF.
Yes.
As it gets bigger and bigger. I don't know how many people follow links inside a PDF, but if you don't know the little trick of like alt back key or whatever it is, you're lost. You have to find your way back to where you started after you've clicked the link, the cross-reference. But yeah, I think we added some convenience even if we didn't save on the size.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was more of kind of a sidebar question. Obviously, the approach you guys took was much more usable by your field service engineers. And it just appeared to me from the presentation that that was the overriding goal.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely wanted to make it more accessible. And as I say, the principles of Information 4.0 really kind of gave us a clue which direction to go in to make that happen.
Excellent. Some other questions that were added to that Q&A panel. And again, feel free to say no, because I realize that some of your content, because of your industry, may be sensitive. But somebody asked, can you show an example of the micro content that you used?
I can't.
Understood.
I did not build that into the test project. That is the one thing I didn't do. I don't know. Yeah, I
Like,
have it in like the big O-arm project, but I don't have it in the test project.
that's okay. What I would recommend to the people or the person who asked that question, if you want to see some micro content in action, just go into the Flare online help system. If you don't have Flare installed, you can access that right from our website. And if in the Flare online help, you just do a search on the phrase insert image, you'll see an example of micro content. You'll have that augmented search results where, yes, you will get links at the bottom, but there will actually be a procedure at the very top that says, oh, well, here's how you can do it. So there is a way you can actually see that in action if you want. All right, so let's see, other questions. Okay, I think I answered this one. I'm not sure I answered it the exact way that you guys did it at Medtronic, but they were really impressed with the way that you had linked back to the PDF from the HTML5 procedure, and they were asking the specific technique that you used in that case.
I can talk about that. So let's go to a topic that has that. First of all, you have to have a name destination in your PDF. And since we're building the PDF from Flare, you can put the name destination just right in the topic. And you can see that the name here is Surge Collector. And then you do a hyperlink to the PDF. Yeah. And you can set things like, sorry. You can set, I have it all turned off. I don't know where that's coming from. You can set it to one of the named destinations that you have in your PDF. You can either build it first and then do this exercise of going back through and linking to the PDF, or it's a little bit faster to actually go into the text editor and just code it in to say this is the name of the name destination that I want you to open. So does that help?
Perfect. Yeah, I pretty much added a generic text version of that answer that said, here's how it's typically done, but you just validated what I said. So I appreciate that immensely, and it's always nice to see it live.
Yeah, I cut out some of my live demos since I got us started so late. I apologize to everyone for that, but
no worries. I think we have time for one or two more questions because we do have to close right on the hour. But this is an easy yes/no question. Somebody asked, have you made any use of Madcap Central, the cloud component, or was this purely Madcap Flare desktop?
Purely Madcap Flare desktop at this time. To quote you, Mike, I can neither confirm nor deny that Central may be in our future. and then we will be able, I mean, right now our intranet is SharePoint, and I don't have all the access I need to really put it up there, but we hope, we would love to try a secure website on Central at some point in the future. We don't right now, though.
Excellent. All right, I think we've handled or managed to get to, oh wait, there's one more question. The zip files of the HTML5 system that you send to your field service engineers, are they scrambled or password protected in any way?
No, but the access to the location is quite restricted. It's restricted to internal personnel, and it's based on whether or not they've done the training on that version. If they haven't done the training on that version of the output, then they can neither get the PDF nor the download.
So they basically have to log in behind a firewall or some kind of access like that.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Very good, very good. All right, I think that's every question that had been submitted. Our timing is perfect. So I would just like to thank you, Miss Trish Edwards. Great webinar. That was amazing. I want to thank everybody for attending. And please don't forget to pop up to our website under our resources tab. You can check out future scheduled webinars. They're always free. Please feel free to sign up. And by attending today, you can expect to receive an email once we have the recorded version posted live, and then you can share this with your colleagues and your coworkers. But thank you so much, Trish.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
All right. Cheers, everybody.